today we're talking about Succession episode 2, Mess in Time for War. And what a fantastic title for this episode, because this is a mess. And I appreciate the sense of urgency with all these episodes because you feel like the walls are closing in and time is of the essence. And by the end of the episode, it seems that Ken and his father are pretty much neck to neck. So the episode starts off and Ken is pretty much on his way to the top. Siobhan is about to switch sides, and I like that she got a call from her father, and I believe there was like a picture of Saddam Hussein as her father's icon or something like this. But that just cracked me up because it's, the thing with Logan is that he's too smart for his own good, and he's really desperate, right? Like, he's desperately calling everyone. He's basically telling everyone, like, listen, I'll give you whatever you want. And he made a big mistake by offering Siobhan a job that he never intended on giving her, and he will never give her, to be quite honest. And the thing is that I knew he was desperate when he told Connor he was his number one, right? Like, he's just copy pasting like all these conversations, and he doesn't really care, right? He doesn't know where anyone is. He doesn't know what anyone is thinking, and he's petrified, right? He's stuck in this foreign country, and the walls are really closing in on him. But I will say this about Logan. At least he's transparent in how trashy he is and how terrible of a person he is. You know what I mean? Like, at least we know he's willing to do anything to get to the top. Whereas his children are less honest about who they really are. And we saw this in that family meeting that they had. So the issue that Ken is having is, even if he does take his father out, there's really no guarantee that he's going to take over as CEO, and that's part of Siobhan and Roman's reluctance to jump ship, right? Because Ken is very good at making promises that sadly he cannot keep. So before I talk about what happened with Gregory or Team Logan, I just want to talk about this very messy family meeting that took place. Like, I thought the dialogue here was brilliant. I love how they kind of play with the apartment by going into different rooms. And it really kind of highlights how these guys are biting off way more than they could chew, right? So Siobhan comes over to Ken's house and they kind of have this frank conversation. And I love, Ken, to be honest, his father was about to throw him in jail, right? He says, well, I was about to be a sacrifice, so girl, like, I had to do what I had to do to save myself. So there's really nothing Siobhan could say about that. But what I liked is Ken pretty much told her, like, listen, you tell yourself you're a good person, but you're actually not a good person. And I'm basically you. And he's right. He's doing what they all want to do, but they don't have the balls to do it. And the thing with Siobhan that really annoys me is that she expects things to be handed to her. Like, she feels she deserves it. Like, she doesn't want to get her hands dirty. And Ken pretty much called her out. He's like, listen, if you want to be at the top, you're going to have to fight a little bit harder than you're currently fighting right now. And with that, Roman and Connor come in, and I knew that this was a serious meeting because they called Connor, who's the most irrelevant, most useless, like, this guy. I mean, he is just the definition of just, like, rich, right? This dude is complaining about his flight, he's complaining about where his wine is stored, like, he plays him so perfectly. So then they end up having this family meeting in the kids' room, and I thought it was so appropriate that they were having this meeting in a little girl's room, because you're sitting there and they're kind of like trying to find a place to get comfortable, and they're all way too big for the room. And I think it was meant to kind of illustrate how, first of all, they're biting off more than they can chew, and it's like they're playing grown-up. You know what I mean? Everything about this family, especially Logan's children, it's like they're playing like dress up, right? It's like they look like adults and they act like adults, but they're actually not adults. Because every time they get in trouble, it's their father that bails them out. And so, you can be surrounded by strong people, but that doesn't necessarily make you a strong person. And so the question is Ken strong enough to stand by himself? And by the end of the episode, you suspect that he may not be. So they get into this room and Ken pretty much makes his desperate pitch. And his pitch was convincing in a lot of ways, right? So the first thing he kind of promises or kind of points out is the decline of an empire. He's basically saying their company is corrupt, and that pretty much like their business is no longer, right? Like, it's irrelevant. And his plan is even more like, the thing about Logan is that he's very power hungry and he likes to have control and know everything. And what Ken was articulating wasn't that much different. So his plan to kind of modernize their company is to control information and kind of have it so that they, I guess, combine all their news stations or all their companies into just one big kind of Google, it seems. And something about that just seemed really sinister to me. And what was even more sinister is how Ken was pitching himself as like a minority, because the thing is, the way he's kind of justifying himself is by saying that the only way to make things right is to put me in charge. That's what he sees as the right thing. And he really sees himself as a minority. He's like, you know what? Out with the old, in with the new. And I loved Roman in this conversation because he's like, oh yeah, because like clearly we represent minorities and like the underdog. Because Ken, he's an underdog in, like, you can only compare yourself to the people that you're next to, but I mean, come on, like a lot of his sort of misfortune was his own doing. So as he's talking, you really have to remember that this guy like killed someone and his father bailed him out. So he's talking, and then the bit that really I enjoyed was this conversation about accountability, because the thing is, his father's company, basically they're responsible for murders, covering up murders, pedophilia, just all kinds of really sick nonsense. And Ken was saying, listen, we all knew what he was doing. We all knew who these people were. So let's just tell the truth, right? And I guess growing up, they overheard many conversations. There were jokes about staying away from certain people because they were just dangerous to be around. And the thing that really annoyed me was the fact that Siobhan and Roman sat there and they were like, we didn't know anything. It's like, okay, you might not have had the papers, but you definitely knew that things were not all the way right. And I was like, Roman, I couldn't tell if he was playing dumb to play dumb. You know what I mean? Because he said from the start that I'm here to snitch, essentially. But Siobhan tried to justify it by saying she was 15, she didn't know any better. And it's really interesting how they all see themselves, right? Because although Ken kind of sees himself as like their savior, I mean, Roman and Shiv are not that different, right? It's like all of you knew what this was. So why don't you just admit to it? And I thought it was really interesting that two of the siblings could admit to it, but the other two couldn't. And so Ken is desperate and he makes promises. And I love the part where he was like, listen, we can divide the company, but I'll be your overseer. I'll be the guy, but it's just a formality. Like, don't worry about it. And they were just looking at him like, are you out of your mind? And I enjoyed this family meeting because you see how similar they all are, right? Because Siobhan pretty much says, listen, the only way I'm going to agree to this is if you put me as CEO. And again, she wants it handed to her, right? And I love the passive aggressive nature of Ken because he just looks at her and says, like, you're not ready. It's not me who thinks this, it's just the market, right? And, he's making all these promises and it sounds really fantastic, but the reality of it is we've seen him crash and burn before. So Siobhan and Roman, they kind of go their separate ways and they make their phone calls. And Siobhan is always like, she's really good at getting very close, right? So she calls Tom, and the way she talked to Tom, I was just kind of shocked, right? So she's like, I'm with Ken, and he's like, I already know because Greg told me. Like, he was trying to act dumb. But her thing is, should we pretty much abandon ship and kind of take this chance, right? So Siobhan, the only reason she wants to go with Ken is for the possibility of becoming CEO. And the only person that I was somewhat impressed with this entire episode is Roman when he called Jerry, because first, I think he really respects her. Second, he really asked for her advice, right? So the two of them, it seems like he's really watching her back. And the thing with Jerry is that she really has to watch her back, because in the first episode, if you recall, Logan made several comments asking where Jerry was during the time of the cruises. And apparently she has an alibi for everything. Like, she had no knowledge of all these things, or like how deep it was, or at least she didn't have enough knowledge to kind of throw her under the bus. And Jerry would actually be a good person to throw under the bus because she has the experience and the legitimacy, right? She seems like somebody who knows everything. But it seems like Roman kind of suspects some type of backstabbing coming her way, and he's really kind of looking out for her. And she's really looking out for him, right? She kind of says, we should, she kind of takes into consideration his committee. She's like, your apprenticeship starts now. And the thing with taking over is that you need to have like an air of legitimacy about you. It's not enough to take over, but you have to look like you know what you're doing. And I think that's also why Roman attaches to her, because she's someone that can guide him until he's ready, because he's definitely not ready right now. And he was really taking her advice, right? Like, he was so cute. He's like, should I do this? Even though I really shouldn't be listening to you. And I don't know, like, again, he's a terrible person with like moments of humanity. And she pretty much said the same thing that everybody else has been thinking, which is like, even if you do side with him, I mean, you all get burned. Like, this is not going to turn out well for any of you. And again, she could have been saying that for her own self-interest, but I doubt it, just given their relationship. So I was like, kudos to Roman for having a soul. And so they come back into the room. And I'm not going to lie, before those donuts, it really seemed like Siobhan would switch sides, right? Because she kept, like, it seems like she had already decided to go with Ken. And she was just trying to convince Roman to come over, but she already had that in her mind. And then these donuts came. And this scene with the donuts was so interesting because it just, coupled with the fact that they had this meeting in like a child's bedroom, it was just kind of perfect, right? It's like a bunch of adults playing house, you know, having tea time. Like, it's not real. So their father sends a box of donuts, and Connor is looking at those donuts like he's seen a ghost. He's petrified, he's horrified. Roman's horrified, Shiv is horrified. They're just looking at this box because they looked at this box as if he was really there, you know, as if he'd been like overhearing their entire conversation. And it was really funny because after that, all Roman could say was, oh, I'm with that, I'm with that, I'm with that, like, just in case, like, the thing is bugged. And so that box of donuts, you know, pretty much symbolizes two things. One, Logan is not afraid of anything. And two, he knows his kids better than they do, right? So he knows exactly how they work, and he knows exactly how to kind of make them do what he wants them to do, right? Which is exactly what happened at the end. So they all kind of run for their lives. And I have to say, like, everything Ken said to his siblings, although horrible, he was pretty much spot on, right? Like, he goes in on Shiv and tells her, listen, the only reason I want you on my side is because you're the woman. And that's true, right? Like, she has no value outside of that. She has no experience. The only reason that she even became interested in the company is because her father tricked her into pretty much working for him. And as far as Roman's concerned, he is useless, to be honest. And Connor, I don't know why he was there. He was just like irrelevant. Like, I think that's a perfect word to describe him, because he is irrelevant. Like, he's not an icon. He's almost like a non-presence. I don't know how to describe him. And so Ken was going in on them, and to be honest, Ken is kind of a plastic Jesus, right? He's sitting there, he's been pitching himself as like, you know, doing the right thing, and being on his side is the right thing, and then he lays out his evil plan, and it just sounds even more sinister than whatever the hell his father was doing. So the donuts were a brilliant move. It kind of exposed the fact that these kids they're not ready. You know what I mean? Like, they act smart, they act like adults, but it's all playtime. It's not real. And poor Ken, you know, as they're kind of leaving the room, you can kind of feel that his momentum has died a bit, and all he has left are these papers, and we don't know how secure these papers are, right? And it seems like Ken is a bit worried himself, because at some point he had a conversation with Lisa, and they were talking about the possibility that their father could shut them down. And Ken said something interesting. He's like, you need to prepare for all eventualities. And what I got out of that is maybe they don't have as much information as they need to kind of take this guy down. And so these papers are interesting because the only people who know what's in these papers are Ken and Cousin Greg. And Cousin Greg seems hella flaky, right? He doesn't seem like, it feels like he backed the wrong horse. So I just want to touch on Cousin Greg because he is going through it at the moment. So at the start of the episode, you know, you get a sense that Greg does not feel secure. At one point, I think Ken made the comment like, I don't even have to tell anybody where I got these papers from. And Cousin Greg was like, what? Excuse me, sir? Like, was there ever a possibility that you were going to tell anybody? You promised me you wouldn't. So his gears are turning. And the thing with Cousin Greg is that he's always thinking about what's best for him, because he sees that everybody else is also thinking about what's best for them. And so I think one of the most brilliant scenes is as he was leaving, the Trojan horse comes in. And there is a sense that Greg will be their Judas, right? Like, Greg will be the sort of person that takes them down. And so Greg is in a weird position because everybody thinks that they're on his side. And he's still playing both sides, surprisingly. Like, he gets out of the apartment and Tom calls. And then I remembered why I don't like Tom is because of the way he talks to Greg. It's very creepy, it's very strange. And Greg snitched. He told Tom that Shiv was going over to Ken's house, or was at Ken's apartment. And so this was the first sign that Greg is a bit flaky, right? He's not sure what he wants to do. And apparently nobody else knows, like, he doesn't know what to do, and everybody thinks that they're on his side, right? So Logan hired him a lawyer, Ken hired him a lawyer, and so he's thinking, like, what's best for me? And one of the most bizarre scenes is when he's at his apartment that Ken bought him, and he kind of brings over a friend, and this friend is looking at this apartment like who are you? You know what I mean? Like, how, like, what is even happening here? And he's asking her for advice, and she's a first-year law student. She has no idea what to do. And then one of the lawyers knocks on his door. And this part was hilarious because the lawyer walks in and he doesn't really know what to do. And he literally puts this guy on hold. He's like, can I put you on hold while I talk to my friend? And you would think he was on the phone, right? Like, that was good writing. Like, he literally put this guy on hold to go talk to her friend, and he doesn't know what to do, right? He doesn't know what to say. He's new to this world. He's just kind of like playing it by ear. You know, he doesn't even know what he's saying. And so out of desperation, he goes over to his grandfather. And the way he talks to his granddad, like, you could tell his granddad just doesn't hate him and doesn't like him. Like, he has no general feelings towards this young man. But he was able to kind of convince him to get him a lawyer. And the way that he was able to convince him to get a lawyer is basically by saying, all these people are arming up and I'm out here naked. Like, you need to protect me. You know, for better or worse, we're family. And his grandfather says, okay, that's fine. And the only thing clear about this episode in terms of Greg is that he's a tool. The question is, like, a tool for what, right? And there's this brilliant meeting he has with the lawyer at the end, and they're saying, okay, Greg, we'll help you. But you're going to be a tool to kind of open up this company and see, like, what's really going on inside, right? And the thing with the grandpa is that he doesn't like his brother. So he doesn't like Logan, but he's also very loyal to him. So it's hard to know if he offered Greg this counsel as just kind of backup. You know what I mean? As just kind of like, okay, you need a third party. Or as insurance, you know what I mean? As somebody to kind of keep their eye on. Because the grandpa doesn't buy this, that Greg is totally innocent, right? He asks him at some point, like, why do you need a lawyer, Greg? And, you know, Greg did something wrong, and his grandfather wasn't born yesterday. So it seems like Greg is worried about himself, and as he should be. And finally, we'll talk about Logan, or Team Logan. And that scene, like, when we first see him, he's, like, tossing the salad. And I thought that was a brilliant metaphor for his current situation, because he's just, like, a disaster. He's pissed off. He's stuck in a foreign country. He's trying to figure out where everybody is. He's making desperate phone calls, telling people, I'm on your side. And the most significant thing to come out of this is Marcia. So I guess they have been estranged. And the only way for him to even begin kind of fighting Ken is to get his image in order, right? Because right now he just looks like a dictator who's been exiled. So one of the ways to do that is to try and get his family back together, which is why he's so concerned with where everybody is. Because if he has any hope, he needs to make Ken look like he's alone, and that actually, like, he has the support he needs. And one of the ways to do that is to have his wife by his side. But Marcia is not a dummy. You know, I got the sense that Marcia has always been on his side, but it was conditional, right? There was always something attached to it. And this episode, we realized why. So her thing is, listen, I'll help you, but I'm going to need to be financially stable. You're going to have to guarantee all these things. And it's pretty much a transactional relationship at this point. And so it seems Marcia is very angry. And her strategy is to take everything from, like, to secure her place before this, you know, this ship goes down. And they have a conversation about Ken. And we have to remember that Ken killed somebody. So that's still something that, you know, they can use against him. But Logan knows. It's one of those situations where it's like, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't, because he makes a comment saying, you know, you don't want to get blood on yourself, right? So they have to find a way to kill off Ken without incriminating themselves, but because they're so intertwined, it's almost impossible to do that. And so the episode ends and he flies back. He flies back to the US. They have this family reunion. They get pictures taken. And so by the skin of his teeth, he's able to kind of, you know, at least have the appearance that people are on his side. And this final scene was important for a lot of reasons, because for one, in terms of Ken, his time is up. He has no more time left. It's over. And he didn't shake Jerry's hand. So Logan Logan is in charge and he wants everybody to know that he's in charge, right? And one of the ways he does that is by not shaking Jerry's hand as a way of reminding her of her place. It's like, you may formally be CEO, but I'm the man in charge. And I think this attitude is what ultimately will be his demise, because you gotta let it go, man. Like, you can't keep doing this. Like, you're flying too close to the sun. And so he gets in the car with Shiv, and this conversation with Shiv just proves what kind of person she is and why and how well he knows his children, right? Because she really wants that green light. She wants him to give it to her. Like, Shiv will never take anything for herself, and her father knows this. And so they have a conversation, and Jerry's name comes up. And what I got out of it is that they're going to try to throw Jerry under the bus, but they're trying to figure out how to do it. But you guys correct me if I'm wrong. But overall, I thought it was an excellent episode. I enjoyed the pacing. I think there's so many things I even missed. So if there's things you caught, you guys let me know. I think it's so well written, and they don't really waste time or space. So everything means something. You know, I love how they utilize the apartment. I love how they utilize, you know, this sort of metaphor of him coming back to the country. You know, and the thing with Logan and Ken is that they're so different, but yet they're very much the same, you know. So you guys let me know what you think, and until next time.